What is going on, guys? Dayton here, aka DrAutoflower, back at you inside the grow room. We're bringing you guys another auto question and answer video. Hope you guys had an awesome Christmas and wishing you guys a happy new year. And again, I'd like to thank all you guys for hitting that like button. It really helps a lot. Leaving comments, leaving your questions down below. It really helps the algorithm. Let's keep it up, guys, and let's try to get another 1,000 likes on this video. As many of you guys know, I don't make any money on the AdSense on these videos. So if you want to help support the channel and you're looking for a new LED grow light, I can hook you up with the Optic LED discount codes and help you choose the best light for your situation. So you can hit me up at drautoflowerled@gmail.com or at DrAutoflower on Instagram. And last thing before we get into the video, if you want to check out my new channel, the MushLoven channel, I recently put out a new mushroom video, so you can check that out. I'll put the link in the comment section and the description below. So with that out of the way, guys, let's get right into the questions. So Frito2 Detrap says, do I need a grow tent to grow my Autoflower gelato? So this is a good question, and a lot of people should know about this. If you have good stable genetics, you should be able to grow your autoflower anywhere. You can grow in a closet, you can grow in an open room, not worrying about light leaks or anything like that. Because if it's good stable genetics, you could have light leaks, you can have, it just growing in a corner with a light over it, and it should be fine technically. But again, that's using really good stable genetics that it will definitely autoflower. If it's not stable genetics, you may have issues and it may not flower fully, or it may take longer to flower. That's why I say always get your seeds genetics from a reputable breeder. But you definitely could do it. I've seen it before where people just have it in like a closet and they don't really, worry about light leaks or anything like that. They just have a light over it. Maybe you want to have it on like 18 hours on, 6 hours off, or 20 hours on, 4 hours off. Would be fine. So in my experience, you don't need to grow a tent. You should be fine, and yeah, might as well just give it a go and see how you like it. Of course, lights will be more efficient in a grow tent. As you can see here, the light is like reflected off the walls, and you're not losing that light to like just spreading out too much and lighting up the room. So that is the benefit of grow tent. You have like a more enclosed environment. Growers United asks, when you stop the feed and switch to plain pH water, do you even add anything like molasses, mycorrhiza, or worm castings? Thank you for your time. So I actually do not pH my water when I stop and just go flushing them. I don't worry about pHing. If there's a pH lockout, oh well, who cares? To me, that just means the plant isn't going to uptake any more nutrients, and that's what I want. So yeah, I don't worry about the pHing at all, and it saves me quite a bit of time because I just get the water, pour it in, done. Do I ever add anything? I used to. If I was growing organically, I would definitely be adding molasses. Back in the day, when I first started, I used to use molasses for the first like 4 years, but I kind of stopped because it's kind of messy and stuff, and I didn't really see that big of a difference when I did stop. So you could do it. Some people really like to do that kind of stuff. I'm not really into it. Worm castings I probably wouldn't add at the end when you're just flushing. Worm castings have a lot of nitrogen, and you don't really want to be giving your plant nitrogen at the end of the flower. So yeah, I just wouldn't use it. Molasses you definitely could. Mycorrhiza, I'm not too sure about that. I never got into that. But yeah, molasses is pretty good to use if you want to use something at the end. Blackstrap molasses is usually the best one, the organic kind. And like I always say, just experiment. Maybe try it with a few of your plants and then a couple without, and then at the end test them and see if there's a difference, if you like one or the other, and usually that'll give you a good indicator if it's worth doing again. Joe's Quinones, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, says, hey Dr. Autoflower, my question is, when you start the flush at week 5, week 6 of flower, do you pH the water or don't you? They say you shouldn't because it stresses out the plant more to produce more resins towards the last days. What are your thoughts on that? So like I said in the last answer there, I do not pH my water, and there could be something to be said about stressing out the plant a little bit, because you're going to go into nitrogen lockout kinda, and your plant's ain't going to get the nutrients that it's looking for. So that could stress out your plants a little bit, and to protect itself, it's going to put out more resin. So I can see how that would make sense. I've done it both ways myself, and it seems like not pH in the water actually seems to be a little bit better and helps push the flush through a bit more, and they get more yellow and bring out the colors more. Todd Russell says, my Autoflower Blue Amnesia is in 3-gallon pots. Can't help but wonder if she would have been better off in a 5-gallon. Her ppfd is around 600 to 800, so her light isn't at 100%, so it shouldn't be the light that she's not getting enough of. Interesting though. I don't seem to water as much as other YouTubers do. Personally, I think if you can do 5 gallons, you should definitely do 5 gallons. 5 gallons is usually the good happy medium, because you could do bigger. You can go to 7, 10, and technically your autoflowers would get bigger. Some of my biggest autoflowers were with you know, those bigger pots, but it's just so much extra work, and I just don't like it, and it's more hassle. Your lighting seems fine. I'm not too sure what you're feeding it or how often you're watering. And I just do the lifting up technique to feel if it needs to water soon or whatever. And I watch the leaves. If the leaves start drooping a bit and they're light, that usually means it needs watering. So you should jump on it as fast as you can. But yeah, I would say for you, I would probably switch to 5 gallons next grow. Don't worry about it too much this grow. You can always change them up in the future. Try it out with 5 gallons and see what your results are then. And it pretty much gives them an opportunity to grow a bit bigger, because bigger root system means bigger plants pretty much. Tony Parsons asks, my question is, I have a 2x4 tent and wondering what CFM would be needed for my tent. Also, the vents are at the bottom of the tent. Should they be all the way open? So I'm not exactly sure what the CFM would be needed for that, but I can definitely recommend getting a 4-inch inline fan. A 4-inch inline fan is pretty much perfect for this grow area, and it should do a good job taking the heat out and removing the smells and stuff if you got a carbon filter on there. So yeah, 4 inches is the way to go. You don't have to open up the vents or anything. The tent will kind of just like allow air to come in. I'm not sure if you're worrying about light leaks or anything like that, but I personally don't leave mine open. I just let the air just come in freely through the, you know, cracks, you know, through the zippers and stuff like that. It all kind of comes in. The tent may get sucked in a little bit, but, you know, whatever. Oras Tane says, I run my soil cocoa worm casting mix and been struggling with pH imbalance a lot. At what pH do you keep your soil? And also, did you try dolomite lime as a pH stabilizer? Thanks. So yeah, actually back in the day I used to use dolomite lime for a pH stabilizer. I would actually mix it in with my mix right before I plant everything. So I'm not too sure if you're doing all organic or whatever. I would get some TNB up or down. It's like little crystals, you mix it in with the water. You get a pH meter, you check your pH and make sure it is good after you put in your nutrients or whatever you're doing, and then put it in there. And then you would want to check your runoff too, see if your runoff is going a little up and down. Personally, this is kind of why I switched to Advanced Nutrients pH Perfect, because same issue, I would get like fluctuations with the pH. My water here is pretty high pH, so I don't really like that. If you're doing a soil and cocoa mix, I'm not too sure if that's actual soil or whatever, but I would think about 6.3 pH would be what you're trying to get at and try to keep it like stable. And also you don't want your plant soil to dry out like too much. It can actually make the soil pH fluctuate a bit. So I would try to keep on top of your waterings and make sure it didn't dry out completely. Just Having Fun says, do you feel it's beneficial to lower the temps from 75, 80 Fahrenheit to 65-ish Fahrenheit during the week before harvest and during curing? Thank you. I actually have never done this. That is probably the lowest temperatures I've ever heard someone growing at. If you're actually trying that, I'm sure it would bring the colors in really good. But the reason why I wouldn't do that is because when you lower your temperatures that much, when you were maybe at already 80 Fahrenheit and you drop down to 65, when you go that low, you're making the environment better for molds to form. So that reason I wouldn't do it. I don't think I would see a point of doing it other than if you're trying to get colors to come out more. Maybe it would form a little bit more resin. Hard to say though. Would it be worth it? I don't think so, not personally. Polly asked, Doc, I've recently bought Remo Nutrients range. When you use it, did you need to flush? Thanks, man. P.S. I'm in soil. So yeah, Remo Nutrients, pretty much like any other bottle nutrients, I would definitely flush it at least 2 weeks. I personally like 3 to sometimes 4 weeks, depending how long I take them. Sometimes I take them longer than usual. But yeah, 3 weeks is pretty much the minimum I do now. MJW says, I honestly believe if you're running organics, what matters most is you're scheduling your amendments at the right times. Yeah, I would really agree with that. If you're doing organics, You really want to get your scheduling down packed. You really don't want to mess it up and miss it by a week or so, because it really throws everything off. I've done this myself. Also a reason why I kind of stopped using organics. You also got to be up on your pHing, make sure you're keeping that nice and stable. Also making sure your pot doesn't completely dry out, because it can fluctuate in pH and stuff and give you nutrient lockouts. And the nice thing about using organics is you don't really need to do a flush or anything, you just water normally. Tay Jackson says, what's the longest veg time should I be using to get my photos to look like yours? Mine always come out short and knee level. Pretty much I would say it kind of depends on your genetics for one. And I also take my plants to like 2 feet high, because I know once I flip it to flower, it's going to be double the size or so once it's like fully into flower. So, and also be aware if you're running more indica plants than sativa, your plants are going to be more stout and short compared to if something is like a hybrid or more leaning sativa, that's going to be a bit taller. Let Arts Live says, wouldn't a bigger pot give more yield that are made out of a kind of biodegradable material? And you're right, the bigger the pot you give it, the bigger the roots can get, and the bigger root mass you can get, the bigger the plants and the bigger the harvest should be. The biggest I ever went up to was 10 gallons, which they got pretty damn big, but it just wasn't worth it to pick them up if I needed to, or deal with such a heavy pot and then watering that much. It is a little bit overkill, but you can definitely get bigger plants. I kind of see it as like diminishing returns, so like you don't get that much bigger, but it definitely is a bit bigger than before. But it kind of depends on you if you want to go that big. It's just more hassle doing the waterings and stuff, or flushings. And also when they're smaller, it just takes so long for the water to get used up. So that's kind of one of the hassles. But like I always say, you can definitely experiment, try it out if you actually like it. You can go get one 10 gallon or one 15 gallon just to try it out, see if you can do it. The pots you're talking about, I think you're talking about smart pots, the fabric pots. That's definitely probably one of the easiest ones to go with. And they're great because it's good for aeration, and the roots can get more air, and the roots pretty much prune themselves. The roots come out, get oxygen, and then kind of die back and then grow inwards and really form thick roots. So I definitely recommend smart pots or air pots if you want to go plastic. They're a little bit more hassle to work with, but they do seem to give a little bit bigger plants. Saval Killick says, can you please briefly explain how to water autos? I know it depends on soil, the type of strain, etc. But can you explain approximately, like first week, second week? Thank you. So I'm used to doing it like 2 ways. I'm actually going back to my old school way of doing it before. And just to let you know, I am using ProMix HP, which is a soilless medium. So my old school way, and what other autoflower growers like to use, is that you would want to fully saturate your pot like 3 days or so before you actually plant your seeds in it. You would plant your seed in the pot you'd want to finish in, and then you would just let it do its thing for the next 12 days to 14 days until it starts looking a bit more dried out. And then you would start giving it its first feedings. And when you start feeding, you should determine by lifting it up. Usually when I fill up my pots with the medium at first, I would lift it up and I know the feeling of when it's dry. And then after you water, you fill it again, and then you know the feeling of when it's fully saturated. You want to learn to lift it up and know the feeling of when it's like just about dry again, because the most optimal time is like right before your pots dry out completely, when it's got a bit of moisture, and right before the leaf starts drooping down a bit. That is the best time, right before the droop happens. If you wait too much and the droop starts happening, then you know you waited a little too long. And the other way of watering autoflowers a lot of people like to do, which is give it a little bit of water at first, like 16 ounces, like a small cupful at first, and then water every couple days. Some people like to do this because they don't want to overwater, and then they would up the water amount a bit more each time, up until like week 2 or day 16, where they would fully saturate it with a little bit of nutrients to make sure all the medium's soaked and there's no dry spots or anything, and that way the roots can grow in all parts of the pot. I've done it both ways, but I think it's just easier to go with my old school method, where you water the pots 3 days before, you let it sit there, you plant the seed, and you just don't worry about it until about day 14 or until it's light, and then you start giving it a little bit of nutrients. And then each feeding after that, you would fully saturate the pot and let it just do its thing until the next watering. But yeah, I think that's it for this episode, guys. We got some more questions, but I'll just get into those in the next episode. Thank you all for watching. Make sure you smash that like button. Hit the bell if you want to get notified. And if you're new here, make sure you subscribe for more. Thank you all for watching. Until next time, peace out and catch you guys later.